Today I'm speaking with Greg Stoker. He needs no introduction, but if you don't know him, he's a former Army Ranger. He's an activist. He's a very popular content creator and geopolitical analyst. And he's the host of his own podcast, Colonial Outcasts. And he's also a contributor with Mint Press News. And he's currently on the Flotilla that is heading towards Gaza to help break the siege and the famine. I'm speaking to Greg Stoker today because just last night, the Israelis allegedly, we'll say allegedly, but we all know they did it, used a drone to drop an incendiary device onto one of the ships that is part of the global Samud flotilla. The ship's name is called Family. And we're going to talk about the details of what happened and the implications. So, Greg, can you tell us a little bit about what happened last night?
All right, yeah. So slightly before midnight, I believe I'll have to check the timestamps. I've been up for like about 24 hours on this. A drone approached the Family Madeira, which is one of our command ships, with a lot of the command echelon and steering committee leadership aboard. Of course, we were anchored in port. We're currently reconsolidating and refitting for the final voyage to Gaza out of the port of Tunis. We launched from Barcelona about a week ago. So all the ships were anchored, and there was a security detail on each boat. I believe there were 6 people on the Family when it was struck. A lot of people were sleeping. Some people were on other parts of the deck, but we reviewed the security footage. Yeah, a drone came in, and of course, more will be revealed as we continue the investigation with the Security Council. But yeah, a small drone came into the airspace and dropped some sort of incendiary device. No actual damage was done to the structure of the ship.
Captain! We've been hit by what appears to be a drone and the vessel's on fire! I was sleeping on the top deck. We heard a massive explosion, a big ball of fire. Fire at the front of the deck.
We'll be releasing photos and video, timestamped video evidence of what happened. But essentially, it hit the bow of the ship in that area where a bunch of life vests were staged, and it burned most of the life vests. It seemed to be a fuel-based device, whether it was gasoline or magnesium. Definitely not thermite, because that would have bored through the ship. We're still trying to make a determination, but there was definitely an attack. You can hear the drone. There's confirmed witness statements that saw like a quadcopter type thing come into the zone, and yeah, the ship was attacked. It was completely a psychological operation and a PR distracting information operation as well. And no damage was done. The flotilla will sail, but that was kind of a jarring incident last night, and we're just taking it in stride and moving right along. Within the greater context of what's going on, kind of suspicious timing, but yeah, we can go into that as well. But yeah, no injuries, no damage. The only damage that was done was to a bunch of life vests, and yeah, we'll continue apace as we were going to. We expect more and more psychological operations like this going forward, and we're prepared for it.
So, Greg, as I understand it, the Tunisian government conducted an investigation and they said that there was no
Ah,
drone, there was no attack, and that it was a life vest that burst into flames, spontaneously combusted into flames. But you guys have released
don't you
footage.
hate when don't you hate when life vests do that?
I do
Just
hate when they do
spontaneously
that.
combust.
I do hate when they do that. It would be very inconvenient if that were to happen while floating in the ocean. That'd be pretty dangerous and deadly, don't you think?
Yeah. So, yeah, the Tunisian National Guard came out with a statement, very rapidly, before we had even got details from our own investigation, saying that, yeah, it was a miraculous thing. It was internal fire, electrical fire, spontaneously combusting vest. Yeah, and I don't know how they would track or determine that it wasn't a drone, seeing that their air defense radar can't really pick up, small aviation craft. Like if it was like an actual real size Q9 Predator drone that runs aviation lights, yeah, that would come up on radar. But like this, I don't see how they would even have the capacity to track their airspace for what was probably a civilian drone with some sort of bizarre munition attached to it. So, yeah, they made that determination. The Tunisian government clearly doesn't want to get involved between, the Israeli government and the flotilla. They've been very accommodating thus far. They have basically given a blanket pass to all passports attached to the flotilla. So we really didn't have to go through any sort of like arduous customs process when we offloaded into the port. But yeah, it's clear that they don't want to get involved in whatever this is. So their stance is actually, and the messaging coming out of the police and the National Guard is to be expected. So just take it for what it's worth and take it in stride. But yeah, we know what happened. We got the footage. We have footage from other boats because we live stream everything for our own safety. So yeah, I think it was the Amla or another boat that was moored right beside it has the footage of the actual munition being fired into the bow of the ship. So it's kind of irrefutable at this point, but we understand the Tunisian government's position.
So all of this is incredible because this is a civilian-led operation, civilians from all
Mhm.
around the world. There is no government involvement, no military involvement. You are all civilians, and not only are you organizing to send food to Gaza and getting all on all these ships, which requires a lot of organization and logistics, but you've also set up your own security teams and communication teams. It's all very professional and organized. Can you talk a little bit about, the meetings you've had, the security investigation you guys are conducting yourself? This is entirely civilian led. How has this worked? How are you guys so organized and united and confident and positive, even in the face of all this intimidation and government silence and censorship from the media?
Well, first of all, growing up, spending the most formative years of my life in a special operations unit that was highly functional, I do wish for some actual military infrastructure, but that it can't be. That can't happen. This is, again, as you said, a humanitarian mission done transnationally. Uh, Beyond the boundaries of countries in order to do the work that our governments collectively in the Congress of Nations should be doing. It's this has been organized over the past 2 months. It's been a rush from day one. One of the reasons that we've had to go ahead so quickly and why like all these evolving structures in terms of like security command meetings and flotilla meetings and all these like things that we're trying to implement in terms of infrastructure, they're actually made on the fly because we had 2 months to put this together. Two reasons. One of them is we're actively watching the final solution being enacted in Gaza, and we felt like we couldn't wait. Second reason, sailing season. A lot of our boats are under sail power, and sailing season becomes very dangerous after September. So it was either go now or don't go. So actually, I'm glad we look completely organized from the outside. But I anticipated a lot of logistical and administrative hurdles, and those exist. And this is a large-scale naval operation. Everything that's going to go wrong is going to go wrong. But we're not going to be deterred, and we're going to keep sailing. So it's this probably pushed us back a day. But yeah, we're still scheduled to launch very soon this week. Um, Sorry, I went on a little bit of ramble. What was the
No, that's
question?
okay. You guys have done an excellent job. Obviously, you're not, the Roman Navy sailing across Carthage, and but you guys are doing an excellent job for a civilian-led operation. So I commend you and all the other brave souls that have put their lives in danger. Obviously, they didn't
Yeah.
drone strike this with a heavier munition, but and it's designed, like you said, a psychological operation of intimidation, but it is still dangerous and deadly, and it could have been a lot worse. So, what does General Greta Thunberg have to say about the attack on the boat last night? Is it true that she was the target herself, or was it in just an attack in general to stoke
No,
fear?
that's completely unfounded sensationalist stuff.
So she was
Yeah,
not the
no,
target.
she's on a completely different boat. I
Okay,
mean, absolutely not. No, the family is our command, one of our command ships. Greta is not on that.
I see.
Obviously, I'm not going to disclose which boat it was, but yeah, no. Of course, like a lot of media wants to center around personalities because it makes information more digestible. But yeah, that was not that. That was an attack on our command infrastructure, and it was basically a psychological operation. Like we know what your command ship is. We just hit it. Do you still want to go ahead with this? And yeah, we do want to go ahead with this.
So how forgive me, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Um
Yeah.
Obviously, you expect this to continue. There will be more attacks, there will be more disruptions. What sort of things are you guys doing on the boats, yeah, before launch, during launch, uh, while sailing, to ensure that you guys are safe. I mean, there was one instance a couple months ago, the previous flotilla, where they tied rope around the motor of the ship, the propellers of the ship. They're doing whatever they can to disrupt it. So, what kind of checks do you guys do to ensure that you guys are being as safe as you possibly can be, given that there's a genocidal military with billions of dollars of investment, ensuring that you guys fail?
Well, okay, so you're referring to the Hamdullah, the last voyage. Yeah, there was some sabotage on the propeller. And actually, what's wild, and a lot of people don't know about this, they contracted water to be filled like in the ship's tanks. And right before they set sail, through basically, an act of fortune, they discovered that there was a leak, and they looked at the water, and it had actually been mixed with acid. So they had to, from whatever contractor was filling up the water tanks, so they had to empty the tanks, clean them out, and then get new water for the Hamdullah as well. So there's actually kind of like very diabolical sabotage as well, like mixing acid in all the water as well. So yeah, it's harder to sabotage an entire flotilla. There have been a lot of instances of bureaucratic warfare before we left, especially the port in Barcelona, where they tried to pressure the Spanish government to revoke ship's license, insurance, pull flags, so we can't sail in international waters, close down the harbor. That didn't work. It definitely won't work with the Tunisian government, and it looks like it won't work with the Italian government. So now that we've passed the phase of bureaucratic warfare, we're now looking at, as we sail towards the Eastern Mediterranean, basically unchecked psychological operations to deter the fleet. So this was what I interpret to be like the opening move. It's only going to get worse. So we had Ben Gavir saying we're going to, engage, be sent into long-term terror prisons to deter activists from ever attempting this ever again. So that's part of the psychological operations as well. Like whether or not they'll actually do it, whether or not it's politically viable, remains to be seen. But these kind of threats will escalate. Also, we can. I imagine that the Israeli intelligence services will do what they do to journalists in Gaza, where they'll call ships' captains, prominent activists, journalists on the flotilla to try to get in their heads, threaten them, try to get them to break off and spread fear throughout the entire formation, all the way to sustained drone warfare, where they put a couple of drones and a holding pattern around the flotilla so no one can sleep, just like they do to Gazans. Whatever they do to people in Gaza, we expect that they might try to do to us. To you know Up into the event where they can even park a warship off the flotilla to kind of like escort us in to get interdicted by Israeli naval forces off the coast of Gaza. So every day you're waking up, you're going on deck, and you're looking at the military threat of a missile cruiser parked right off the formation of the flotilla. So we're expecting a lot going forward. And I think most people are psychologically prepared for it, but only one way to find out in the end.
Before we transition to what occurred in Doha and Qatar today, I want to ask, as much as you can potentially reveal, as you guys approach the coast in Gaza, is there any plan to try and evade the Israeli Navy and try to actually make it to Gaza?
Well, the entire mission statement of the flotilla is to land in Gaza, dump the aid. No one's getting off the boats. We're going there, dumping the aid, and getting out, and trying to establish a humanitarian corridor into Gaza. That's the plan. It's not to get off the boats. It's not to do anything crazy. Dump aid, go get more, come back. In an ideal world, that would happen because that's protected under international law. But as you just brought up, Qatar, yeah, Israel just bombed a sovereign nation and targeting Hamas negotiation team, so that there will be no peace going forward. So we can't really expect that's going to happen. So we do think that the interdictions of the various vessels will be violent. We don't really have the capacity to try to blockade run or evade Israeli Navy ships. Like all of these boats are, were purchased from private sellers. They're old. We don't even have bow thrusters on our boat, so we can't even dock without assistance, which is why my boat's anchored out in the port to get like escorted in via dinghies. Yeah, so we can't really evade. We're just going to go try to do what we're going to do. And if they want to stop us, well, the world can be their judge.
Very well said. So let's transition briefly. I know you don't have too much time, but let's talk about what took place in Doha in Qatar today. So it's been reported that uh, the capital of Doha was bombed, specifically the Qatar area. This is where high-level officials stay, and apparently, Trump recently sent his terms, which were very brief, to a Hamas delegation, and they were in Qatar, and they were gathered in this home specifically to review. Now, it's unclear if they're alive or they're dead. People have said they were all killed. There are reports now that they all survived. We don't know exactly what the truth is. We also don't know if the Israelis used a car bomb. Some people are saying they used fighter jets. Some people are saying the US approved of that. Air defenses were turned off. It's still very early and it's too soon to say. But what we do know is that the Israelis carried out an attack in Doha and they took responsibility for it. This is a major escalation, especially given that Qatar hosts the largest US military installation in the Middle East. So, and they just
Mhm.
recently gave Trump $1.2 trillion to invest in the US economy, yet Trump is apparently greenlighting an Israeli attack on Qatar to kill the negotiators that could bring an end to this genocide and free the hostages. So, what did you make of what happened in Qatar over the last few hours?
I mean, it's not really surprising. When they're backed into a corner, Israel, and what I mean by backed into a corner is like when they actually have a viable ceasefire deal on the table, what do? They generally try to kill the negotiators. What happened with Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran? He was one of the more moderate voices within the Hamas negotiating and political infrastructure, and so they had to kill him. So there would be no peace. So there would be no ceasefire. Like their one goal, we all know this, is the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip. And a lot of that is to do with ideology and it also has to do with real estate. Trump is a real estate developer. His special envoy to the Middle East is a real estate developer as well. Jared Kushner, his son in law, is working with Saudis on the Gaza 2035 project. Uh, it's surprising. So, Qatar is in many ways a comprador state to U.S. imperial interests. And do I see? Can I imagine a world where Qatar basically just kowtowed to what the United States wanted to kill these negotiations once and for all? Perhaps it's too early to tell. Um, but the bottom line is, what faith you negotiations with Israel and the United States going forward? We have lost all of our soft power. The new law of the land is impunity and might makes right. This in conjunction with a lot of things that have happened recently, the targeting of a Venezuelan speedboat a couple days ago by the U.S. Sorry, cars driving by the U.S. Navy. That was absolutely absurd, and it was kind of a dog whistle for what they actually want to do, which is just to kill migrants with impunity. Just someone, I never personally conducted any counter narcotics operations when I was in the special operations community, but we did train for it. Let me tell you what, there ain't going to be 11 people on a drug boat. Okay, you got two guys for security, one guy doing the helm, and one guy doing navigation. So just wanted to put that out there. So within the entire context of what's happening, like globally with the U.S. empire as it declines, yeah, all we're going to see is a doubling down on a disregard for the rules based order, which really doesn't exist anymore, and violence.
Adding to what you just said, this is God knows how many times this has happened, but just recently, this is yet another moment or instance in which Donald Trump uses peace negotiations to lure people into a death trap. They did this with Iran a couple of months
Yeah,
ago when they used
Soleimani
negotiations.
during his
Also,
Qasem
Soleimani,
Soleimani during
yeah,
his first
during
presidency.
his first administration, yeah, he invited him to, or they arranged for him to come to Iraq to negotiate. He was killed a couple of months ago with Iran. The whole nuclear negotiations that went on for months, that was a ruse while they were actively planning to attack Iran. And now this. Can you expand a little bit on the collapse of the rules-based order based on what you just said? I mean, Qatar is not really in a position where they can do anything. The U.S. base kind of protected them from getting invaded by Saudi Arabia when they had a dispute a couple of years ago. So I don't imagine Qatar is going
Yeah.
to tell the U.S. to f off now. But how will countries respond to this complete violation of human rights, international law, using peace negotiations to lie, undermine, and kill? How will this change things for the United
Well,
States?
I think one of the interesting questions, an interesting thing to look at, is not what the Qatari government does, but like what the Qatari people do. and what the people throughout the region do in response to like what's happened over the past 2 years. These comprador governments, who are very authoritarian, who rely on Israeli spyware. It's kind of Israel's insurance policy throughout the region. Like all these monarchies require, mass surveillance and police states in order to like maintain control, and they rely on Israel for that. Not just for the spyware itself, but for updates, firmware patches, like everything. It's their arms and intelligence platform is kind of like their global insurance policy. So I'll be curious to see like what the Qatari people have to say about this, and what the people throughout the region have to say about this. Like, of course, as a comprador government, they may have shut down their air defense systems. They may have been warned beforehand and judged that allowing Israel to strike their sovereignty was less a price to pay than pissing off the U.S. empire.
I see. So, Greg, I know you need to get going. I just want to wish you the best of luck on the rest of this flotilla journey to Gaza. I hope you and everyone else stay safe, and I appreciate you taking the time. Uh, you're running low on sleep and energy, but I appreciate you taking the time to have this interview discussion today.